In this lesson, we're going to combine all of our UVs into a single texture map. Alright, so in between lessons I went ahead and I baked out all of these normal maps, just doing a test bake, and you can see that it came out really well. Okay, I didn't do anything as far as working with any UVs or smoothing groups. This is exactly what I got when baking out each one of those separately. So now that we know that our normals are going to work out great, now what we can do is go ahead and take the normal or the UVs of each object, and we need to combine those into a single texture map. So the way that we go about doing that is we need to attach the objects together and then reset where their UVs are at. Okay, and this is going to be a pretty easy thing to do. So first things first, make sure that you create a save before you do any of this process here. Save it, make sure that this file is safe because you could possibly make some mistakes and you'll want to go back. Alright, so now that we're here, let's go ahead and let's go and select our low poly frame. But let's go ahead and go to frame 1 here, so everything is exploded out. What you're seeing here is just the low poly mesh. I've hidden the high poly for right now. I went ahead and also created a couple of selection sets here, so we can select our low poly and we can select all of our high poly objects very quickly, but I'm not going to be using those just yet. So with all of this exploded out at frame 1, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and attach all of the pieces here. Okay, so let's go to Edit Poly, and let's just select the frame here, and we're going to say Attach. Okay, so I'm going to attach this. Now it's going to ask if we want to match our materials and things like that. I'm going to actually hit Cancel really quickly. Let's go ahead and take a single material and let's apply it to that again. So I'm going to use just this regular material, standard material, and let's assign that to the selection. Okay, so that way we don't have any of those warnings coming up. Select the frame and let's just start attaching these objects together. Okay, and what this does is it brings them together into a single object, and then what I can do is I can apply the unwrap UVW modifier to this. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to say unwrap UVW. Notice that all of our UVs are exactly the same, nothing wrong with that. And then what we'll do is we're going to go ahead and we're going to open up our UV editor. Now it's going to look like a mess here, okay, but it's okay. What we can do is we can go ahead and select the polygons. We'll go to element mode, and I'm going to select everything that's here. With everything selected, let's simply pack it in. Okay, we know that everything is unwrapped the way it should be. Okay, we don't want to do any more editing to this. We're going to have these smaller pieces and things like that, and that's perfectly fine. Everything that's in here is exactly the way it should be. Just packing it. It may look like we could UV or we could optimize this a little bit more. We could probably get rid of a lot of this negative space. If you wanted to go ahead and try that, what you could do instead of just packing it, let's hit Control-Z one time. What we could try to do is go ahead and go to polygon mode and then element, and you can select just those clusters. And so what I'll do, just to show you another way of doing this, is to I'll take this group right here and I'll just say, all right, let's group these together. So I can come in, I can go down here and I can say group selected, and then I'll go to the next one and I'll say, all right, group these together. Let's go to the next one, group, and the key lock will group that, and then we'll take the UVs of the crane, we'll group that, and then the cylinder will group that. Now with all of those grouped, what we can now do is select all those UVs and then we can pack that again. Now what's going to happen here is it's going to keep all of those as their own group, so it keeps them together the way that we originally had intended. But you'll notice that even though they're together, okay, so like if we select this, notice it's all in one group. Even though we've brought all those together, it can create a lot of this extra empty space. And so what you'll do here is go ahead and start scaling them up. You might push and pull these around a little bit, trying to get a little bit more room out of this. So we could take this here. We could select the crane. We can bring those down maybe into here. The trigger, that's going to be all of those. It's best to go ahead and select by the object, and we can bring this down here. Let's take a look at the hammer. Where is it at? Okay, that's good. The key lock, we could leave that. And then we could take all of these. So just take everything here and go ahead and scale that. But the way I would scale it is by changing its pivot point. So we can go ahead and change it to the bottom left corner. So then whenever we scale it, it scales from that bottom left corner. We could scale that out. Okay. And that's just like that. But even then, I feel like it's not giving us all of the room that we need. And so instead, what we can do is go ahead and just ungroup that. I'm just showing you a different way. So with all of that ungroup, we can go ahead and just repack it. And you'll see that it packs everything, and it packs everything neatly, gives it the padding that we need on all of those. We could even left-click and hold on that, and we can go to our pack settings. So you can see that we have 0.01, so or 0.02. That's the space in between. Normalizes the clusters. We could have them rotated around. We could even fill holes if we need to. Filling holes might even give us a little bit more room, and notice how that packs it even more. And so I think this is probably the best solution that we have. This is going to give us the most UV space for everything that we need. And then all we have to do is go ahead and close this down. We've got everything unwrapped. It's all into one texture object, and we're going to go ahead and convert it to editable poly. Now the problem with using this is that now we have all of these different objects, and they're one solid piece again. We need to separate them back out. We don't want them to be one piece, because these pieces here, they could possibly be animated at some point. Okay, and before we do that, before we separate them out, we need to go ahead and bake out our final normal map. So I'm going to go ahead and do that really quickly. Let's go ahead and just turn off the isolation mode. Everything should be in position. Everything exploded out. We now have our low poly object as a single object. Let's go ahead and hit 0 on the keyboard. We're going to go through this process again. We have our LP frame. We're going to go ahead and pick the object that we want this to bake to. We're going to select everything in here. So select the top one, hold shift, select the bottom one, and hit add. That's going to bring everything together. We're going to see a really big mess at this point. Give it a little bit of time to respond to create that cage. Alright, so once that cage has been created, first thing we'll want to do is go ahead and reset the cage, so that way it conforms to the original object. Now, if you were paying attention to the cages whenever you were doing your test bakes, if you paid attention to the amounts, I know I was, I think the highest amount that I got to was around maybe 1 or 0.12 on the amount. Now, we don't have to do that. We don't have to push all of these at the exact same time. We can push them by their own elements. And so we're going to go ahead and leave this as reset, and I'm going to turn on shaded and point to point. And then in the next lesson, I'm going to show you how to take each individual element, push out their cages, get those aligned the way that we should, and we'll bake it all at the same time, getting our final normal map. So I'll see you in the next lesson.